Welcome to Buckets. My name is Matt Moore. I'm coming to you from the Tommy John home studios, joined by Joe Dellera and Jim Turvey. This is the Future Jays. We talk futures on Monday's episode of Buckets, breaking down all things across the association that you can bet on in the NBA futures market. Today, we're going to hit on East futures. We're going to talk about Rookie of the Year for the 1700th time. And we're going to hit on Clutch Player with Jim Turvey. All sorts of great stuff on today's show. We will also do best bets for Monday, January 13th in the association. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed Wildcard. Hope all your bets cashed. Mine did not. It's fine. I'm not mad. It's fine. Sadly, the biggest thing is I really like that Tampa team. So I had some long shot futures on Tampa, and those are all dead because Jaden Daniels is the best rookie quarterback by a mile and a half.
Rookie quarterback on the road. How is that even possible?
Yeah. Imagine a rookie quarterback going on the road and winning a playoff game. You know who could never? Bo Nix. Bo Nix could never. Never. As a reminder, everything we talk about can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. You can track your bets. You can see what we're betting. I put in some futures. I'll put in more tonight after this episode. You can catch all that kind of stuff. You can, if you sign up for Pro, you get all of our signals, stuff like, hey, this move, we're tracking 4 line moves or sharp moves on this game. So you can see where the sharp money's coming in at. You can see things like, our projection systems. You can see what Sean Kerner's betting immediately. So you can bet on obscure props that get nuked in the 35 seconds that they are available after Sean posts them. So you can do all that with the Pro account. So make sure to do that. Also, check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/The Action Network. Lots of great stuff on there. I'm going to try and program some more stuff as football wraps up. We'll have more basketball content over at the Action Network YouTube page. All right, let's start. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference because I've been thinking a lot about this because I've ruffled some feathers up in Beantown. And I tend to do that. I have had a going theory on Boston for a little while. And I've mentioned a little bit on the pod. And we saw it again with yet another home loss. And there is an idea that the Boston Celtics, well, they're just coasting. You know, they don't really have to try because they're so good. So here's the thing, is that a large part of Boston's formula was literally their ability to play at such a high floor that they were able to win even when they didn't play great. And I don't think that this is an effort thing. Do I think that they're going all out? No. Do I think they're a little tired? Absolutely. But do I think that the underpinnings that made them such a consistent threat in the Eastern Conference and to win every single game last year are as strong? No, I do not. Their defense has slipped. It hasn't slipped badly. This isn't the 15th best defense or the 17th best defense. They're top 10. Top 10. Good defense. Last year, they were second. And going from an elite defense to a pretty good defense is a considerable drop. Last year, they were incredible at home, never lost at home. They got 7 home losses now. The key here is that I am not here to tell you the Boston Celtics are frauds and are not going to win the NBA title, because that would be fucking stupid. What I am going to tell you is that they are not invulnerable, and the smart bet is not to just bet them blindly because, the Cavs are a regular season team and they're not real, but Boston's real. You know why? Because we said the exact fucking same thing about Boston the last 2 years. And they got an incredible sequence of games last year, and they won the title, and they deserve credit for it, but they're not invincible, and the sequencing and matchups matter. Jim Turvey, can I get a hallelujah?
Hallelujah.
Okay. That said, I'm looking for a way to bet the Celtics right now.
Classic.
The old bean switch there. That was a pretty good one.
So the Celtics are minus 105, shortest in the market. There's some plus 110s out there if you go shopping to win the Eastern Conference. Knicks, shortest odds you're going to get is plus 400. There's as long as a plus 550 for the New York Knicks. You can catch that at ESPN or at BetMGM. The Cavaliers continue to be just kind of golf clapped by the books, being nice for you, good job. Oh, you're going to win 73 games. That's nice. They are still plus 350, plus 400 at DraftKings is the best market on that. Bucks, this is before their loss tonight, were plus 1,200. Orlando, before their win, was 19-1 to win it. The Cavaliers are up they have a 10-game lead over the Knicks for the 3 seed.
Yeah.
So, the Cavs are going to be one of the top 2. I don't know how else to, they could fall off the map and still finish top 2. I was looking at it for, how many do they need to win to get 50 games? And it's literally, 35% winning percentage. It's disgusting. The Celtics are 7 full games. Sorry, this is before the Cavaliers lost. So the Knicks are 9 games behind them. The Boston Celtics are 6 games behind the Cavaliers in the standings. I put some other numbers in here. And I have some things I want to talk about, but I've been talking for a little bit. Joe, I want to ask you, I have like really detailed thoughts on the bracket and how the sequencing goes for how I want to, like, what the bet is. And right now, if it holds the way it is now, there's things I love, but it may not hold. When you look at the Eastern Conference, what's kind of your look at the layout? Like, are you sold on Boston just being dominant? Do you think your Knicks are going to bing-bong their way to the Eastern Conference title? Are we overlooking the Cavs? What's like your look at the Eastern Conference futures market?
I think that the biggest question to me is, like, if the top 3 stay in place, whether Boston and New York flip-flop or not, but if it's Cleveland, Boston, New York, who ends up in the 4-5, I think is really important, because Milwaukee has been meh this year. They're like hit or miss, but they're definitely a team where if they fell into the 6 or the 7, where that their first round matchup isn't against Cleveland, or isn't in, or they're not in Cleveland's side of the bracket, I think it makes Cleveland's position extremely attractive to want to get in on them now at still a big plus number. And Boston probably shouldn't be favored. I think that part of the bracket seems like it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
So my part of the bracket, and this is why I typically tend to say, like, hey, if you want to bet long shot exactas, you can do that. But don't get too sucked into conference futures. Like, I think title futures, just because it's only one more and you're going the whole way. Conference futures to me are very much built on the bracket, and finals have to be as well, but you're getting a little bit of extra value based off of kind of the power rating and perception of those teams. If the Cavs are 1 and Bucks Magic is 4-5, which is current. So if we just stay chalk from now until April, I want Boston. I need Bucks or Magic in the Celtics bracket in order to think somebody can catch them. I don't think the Knicks can do it. The Knicks do allow the second fewest spot-up attempts via synerging. Like, that's really promising, because that's the first thing I'm looking at is, like, can you get Boston just to take fewer threes? Just don't let them take 50 a game. If they take 35, cool. Just don't let them take 50 a game and bomb on you. And one of my concerns is I'm not sure the Cavs can do that. For as good as the Cavs' overall net rating is, I have real worries about that matchup based off of how the first couple of games have gone and Cleveland's kind of general perception of their ability to do that. So if I want Boston to be plus 150 or better, and there's a chance I can get that later. If the Cavs lock the 1 seed, Boston has to keep moving down. Like, part of the price inherently in the market right now is factoring on the possibility of Boston actually climbing back up over the Cavs and finishing with the 1 seed. If Boston catches Cleveland, which 6 games is doable, if Boston catches Cleveland and they're the 1 seed and Milwaukee is 4-5, gonna love a Cavs ticket. I will love a Cavs ticket at that point. But Jim, that's kind of how I'm looking at this, is I need Milwaukee, Orlando, or preferably both in Boston's side of the bracket to do the dirty work to set up the Cavs' ability to win the conference.
Yeah, I gotta say, I love this new modern era of NBA, where we have moved from the super team to, this was what we said all of last year, especially towards the end, is I want to see the bracket. And it's January 10th. You know what I wrote exactly in my notes, Matt? Exact same as you. I want to wait to see the bracket at this point. And it's kind of crazy, because you look at Boston right now, they are, so by dunks and threes, and now the dunks and threes are going to be waiting, this Cavs incredible start to the season a little bit more. And if you look at just their, adjusted net rating stuff, but they have basically the Celtics by implied odds should be plus money to reach the conference finals. The books have Boston at a minus number to reach the finals. So I do think that there is a skew there. I'm with you in thinking that potentially Boston could be a team that at some point there is value there. I do not think that there is value there at this point. And I especially think that because we have kind of reached this era of I want to see the bracket. Like, it's fun that we were saying that constantly about the West last year. It was really like, I not to toot our own home, but it was really fun to look at the matchups, and you, Matt, in particular, have such a, like, you know, like this team plays this style, which matches better with this, and they're good against top 10 defenses. It's really fun to bet. And so I love, we're on the future Jays. I love futures, but I really am at the point right now where maybe you're going to do a low portfolio building. And that's where the team that does interest me, I'm with Joe. I think that Cleveland is portfolio building the most interesting piece in particular, because I'm guessing a lot of people out there have, you know, a bigger name out there. And I think the Cavs are maybe the number that's going to drop the most. I think you could make a case for the Bucks, but I don't think these numbers are going to shift all that much by the end of the postseason. And we'll have so much more information. We'll have seen more matchups between these teams in regular season. We'll have seen if you know, health is the biggest thing. If you don't have megastars, we're going to see who's healthy, who's gotten to rest people here and there. Are the Celtics home woes still continuing? Is that just kind of noise? We're going to have so much more information that I really am at the point with these kind of conference and title futures where if there's a stale number out there, or, you know, if you're building a portfolio, like I am easily the most leveraged on the Thunder, and I do want to start piecing together little things here and there. But I'm not in a rush to do it because I really do want to see the pieces of the puzzle first. You guys talked about some of the potential matchups. If it holds as like Cleveland, because Cleveland's the team that interests me the most this second. But what if we get the end of the season, Cleveland holds the number one? That's great. But in the 4-5 matchup is, you know, Knicks Bucks, and in the 8 seed is the 76ers, who suddenly are like, they limp to the 8 seed, but, you know, they're healthy and they have Joel Embiid. I don't want to bet the Cavs. I don't want to be holding a Cavs ticket that I paid for in January, held my money, you know, for 4 months, and now I'm like, well, crap. I'm like terrified that this team's going to lose in the first round, let alone the second round, and then they have to get through Celtics. So I do think that the East has enough teams that are decent and enough interesting matchups that I'm now approaching it kind of like I did the West last year, which is grab a stale number if it's there. Last year was the Mavs, was kind of the stale number that was to be got, and that paid off in spades. But mostly I'm really looking, I want to see the matchups, and I think that the East is going to have a lot of really interesting matchups that when we finally finalize that bracket, and maybe it's, you know, if the matchups become clear, or like it's like very likely that, you know, that 4-5 is a little softer and the Cavs look like they have the number one, maybe we can start moving early. But at this point, is way too much time for me to lock in a ticket. Certainly a big money ticket, maybe sprinkle a little bit of Cavs, because I think that is the one with value. But overall, I kind of want to wait and see with the way the East is right now.
Yeah, and it's just, for me, it's very dramatic because, like I said, I if it is Bucks Magic in the 4-5 and Boston does overtake for 1, like that's when I'm going to be like, now. Because Cavs number will drop, because it's going to be like they couldn't even hold on to the 1 seed.
Yeah.
You know, Boston will go back to being minus 150 or shorter. And Cavs will drop back to 500 or longer.
Yep.
And that, to me, is going to be like, that's the spot you want. If you're in the 2 spot, you are probably facing there's a lot that can happen between now and then. It could be Heat, which are tough. It could be the Sixers in the play-in spot, right? There's all these kind of things. It could be the very dangerous Atlanta Hawks. Like, there's all these kind of things. But like right now, from a most likely standpoint, it's probably the Pacers. Like, I would think that the Pacers are probably going to wind up at 7. And so it's like Boston, if Cleveland stays in 2, and the Pacers beat them tonight for sure, but like if the Pacers wind up, if the bracket for Cleveland winds up, they got to beat the Pacers and then the winner of Knicks Heat. Love that for Cleveland. But the exact opposite is true for Boston. If Boston gets Pacers and then the winner of Knicks Heat. So here's my question for you though, because I am like interested in this Knicks team and wondering, like, is that maybe like the gap in this? Is that like the thing I'm not seeing? So from the two of you, and Joe, will go to you first as the resident 82 and 0er. Knicks Cavs, how do you feel about that matchup? Because after the Thunder game, everyone kind of like, there was a little bit after that Thunder game on Friday night in the Garden. Thunder coming off of off of a loss, so it was like yeah, okay, you don't want to play OKC after a loss, but OKC's played the Knicks, Boston, and then the Cavs. It's been a gauntlet, and they go into MSG and they just pants the pants. Like, they just pants the Knickerbockers. So from that perspective, I am curious about your thoughts on how do you feel if it's second round and it's a fully healthy Knicks and a fully healthy Cavs. How do you feel about that matchup?
If the Knicks are fully healthy, I think that definitely changes things when you have Mitchell Robinson enter into the mix. I think
Okay.
that Mitchell Robinson is like the key guy when you look at this. You really hate to say that, right? Because you look at the Knicks, they have all this money, all this other talent that's on the floor, but they really are like 6 players deep right now. So if you introduce Mitchell Robinson, who's a legitimate big, he's a guy that when he's healthy, we've talked about him for Defensive Player of the Year. And if you're playing Cleveland, who runs a double big lineup, it gives you a lot more flexibility. So I hate to kind of say like, yeah, like if they're healthy and Mitchell Robinson's there, I think that actually would make an enormous difference, unless they're going to go make a trade or something at the deadline. I do think that you have to feel okay about the matchup, especially given the fact that, both teams, like New York, obviously with Brunson, you have a small guard, but Cleveland also has small guards. So I think that they match up kind of a little bit more in an interesting way. It does feel, though, that Cleveland has a lot more cohesion right now. Like they're running on full cylinders. And I think that matters. And, obviously you don't want to peak too early. I know that's always like something you kind of have to be concerned about in these long seasons that like the NBA. But I do think that New York would hold up okay against them. And New York, depending on who Cleveland's playing at 3, depending on the health of New York, I think it would be a long series. I definitely don't think it would be short.
Jim, how do you feel about Cavs Knicks?
Honestly, coming into the year, I feel like my party line on the Knicks was high ceiling, low floor. I bet they're under, and I kind of was like, there's some seasons where this goes awry. It hasn't really played out that way. They kind of look to be a high floor, low ceiling kind of classic Tibbs team right now, which I'm confused about. I'm confused a lot about this Knicks team. For the team that I like theoretically am a fan of, I feel like I have almost the worst read of them of any team in the association right now. KAT's been better than imagined. Brunson hasn't been scoring as much. He had a great scoring game today, but like if you look at preseason expectations, he was expected, to be up in like the upper 20s. He's more mid 20s right now. They've confused me a lot. I don't love the matchup with the Cavs a ton. I think Joe is right that if Mitchell Robinson gets back, having that double big is like being able to slide KAT out of the center and put him as a power forward against Mobley and Allen. I think is much more appealing. I actually kind of, they got the Wingstop name at the beginning of the season, right, to mess with the Celtics, and then got absolutely run out the gym on opening night.
Yeah.
But I actually do think theoretically they might even match up with Boston a little bit better. But I don't know if I really, really love the ceiling of this team right now. I definitely do. I think the Cavs are the team that value-wise are the one I'd want to be on. And I honestly still think the Bucks at a long number. I keep coming back to the games that actually mattered this season. They looked good. They basically ran the gauntlet in the in-season tournament. They have not looked amazing, but still, if we're in a league where it's a lot of, kind of pedestrian 2-star teams, Giannis to me is the best player in the East. Maybe this is like a throwback to you still have to have the best player. Like we're overthinking this with like this depth. It's like, no, Giannis just hasn't been healthy in past postseasons. He's still the best player in the Eastern Conference.
So I mentioned some of this on Buckets on Friday's show, but that was more of a hypothetical, speculative thing. On the show, you'll never hear me like, oh, they're going to trade for this guy, so you should go bet this team. That's not how this works. Like that is not how this works. What I will tell you is that the phrase keeping an eye on is dumb because like I'm keeping an eye on all 30 teams, and obviously I'm going to react to everything that they do. But what I would tell you is I am very keen to hear about trying to piece together rumors involving the Milwaukee Bucks, because I think that a substantial change in their structure is possible. And so it would potentially make them a better team long-term and come playoff time. Now, if that doesn't happen, the results could be disastrous too, and that's something we'll talk about another time. But I am just saying, like, to Jim's point, like, getting in on the Bucks now is getting on a team that is not, like, they are not like, yeah, we're good. The Bucks are like, we are still trying to find every way to improve this team to get another title for Giannis.
I think they're 0-8 against the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Cavs this season. So it's like they have not been good against the top of the East either. So it's the same stat that people just used against the Knicks, like where they're like, oh, like they've lost to the top two in the East and the West. So it's definitely a concern in terms of these teams' ceilings, I think, for both New York and for Milwaukee.
I'd push back a little bit in that, like, Milwaukee's literally won a title. We've seen the ceiling of this Milwaukee team. Now, that was multiple years ago at this point, but I do think the ceiling is a little bit more proven, and I think that Giannis is in a different tier than Brunson or KAT.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
True. Can I say one little stat? Because I came into tonight almost wanting to make the case for the Pacers. So since we're going to arbitrary date, who doesn't love an arbitrary date? Since December 5th, this is the Eastern Conference standings. So the Cavs 14-2 plus 11.2 net rating, outstanding. Pacers have been the second best team. You talked about them last week, Matt, and how the offense is starting to click. They've been 13-4 with a plus 6.8 net rating over that stretch. Basically, the Knicks have 13-6, similar net rating. Boston 9-7, and then the third best team in the standings in the East over that stretch. Can you guess it, Matt? I mean, you can.
I cannot. Give me
8-2, 11-4 over that stretch. Have won 8 of the last 10. Pistons Island, baby. So let's lock those tickets right now. No, but Pacers wise, I do think they were starting to look a little bit interesting. And this is a team that, again, in that Boston series, like, they were a little dinged up, and those games were really close. I think this Indiana team's vaguely intriguing at like a really long number. But now that Halliburton has this midseason injury, and we saw what happened last time. He couldn't come back from a midseason injury.
He got his contract now, so
yeah. I mean, I lost, like, literally tonight. I kind of went from, ooh, am I vaguely intrigued to, like, I don't think I.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, he had tightness. We'll see if it's actually a strain or a tear. Like, we'll see. But, like, it's too early to kind of tell on that. Here's what I will say. I kind of have been evaluating all of the East teams below Cavaliers and Celtics in terms of how many teams' days can you fuck up. Like, who can go in and just, like, I'm going to fuck up your day, right? The Bucks, I think, are a team that can fuck up.
Yeah.
They are finals capable because it's like they can, if everything just clicks right, it's just like, yeah, nobody can do anything with Giannis. Yeah. Like, nobody can do it. There was a stretch today, they were down 25. And, like, the bigger point is, like, they were down 25 to the Knicks. But, like, Giannis just kept trucking them. Just over and over and over again. And one. Finish. And one. Finish. Like, and they were getting nailed, and just, like, it hurt. And he would pick up a few offensive fouls, but over the course of a 7-game series, I'll wear you out. The Pacers, I definitely think can, like we saw it last year, right? I think they can fuck up two teams' days, right? And I think that's the same kind of thing. It's mostly like, how many rounds can you win? I think the Pacers can win 2 rounds. I don't think they can win 3. I think they can win 2. Orlando is one where you need the exact right sequencing.
They definitely are bracket watch team, because if it breaks right, they could be interesting. Like you said,
if the Cavs were to get upset and Orlando was up against Boston, I would start putting in Orlando, not title futures, but East title futures. And again, this is not me saying that Orlando is better than Boston and that they're going to beat Boston. They would be huge dogs in that series, and for good reason.
Price. Yeah.
But, like, it's a probability, which is all we talk about in this show. Let's go to something that's almost impossible to figure out probability of because it's so random. Rookie of the Year, where your new leader in the market, tied with Zach Edey, is Alexander Sarr, the Washington Wizard. And you ask why, and my answer is, well, clearly somebody came in and hit Sarr last week. Like, that's pretty evident when you look at, like, the movement. That's like, and the reason is because if you look at points per game for rookies, guess who your leader is right now? Alex Sarr. Alex Sarr is averaging 11.7 points per game. Tied with who, Jim Turvey?
Tied with Jalen Wells, I believe.
I'm going to go off about Jalen here in a second. But, like, so Sarr is your new leader. The rookie wall concept is kind of interesting, right? Because, like, Sarr is just going to keep playing. The Wizards will start being like, oh, yeah, Jordan Poole's got hamstring tightness. He's out. Or they're going to trade Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole. Like, all the veterans will slowly, like, evaporate. But, like, Alex Sarr is going to play the same amount of minutes. His stuff will not shift. There is a possibility that with Jalen Wells, the Grizzlies may be like, hey, kid, you've done great awesome season. We're very excited about your future. We're locking in the playoff rotation.
Yeah.
And that does not include you. So like that's entirely possible. Yves Missi has the second most minutes played. And Missi is 4th in rookie BPM and 6th in points. I will just continue to say, like, I like Yves Missi as a player. I think he's going to be very good for the Pels. I do not understand the idea of, like, he's rookie of the year. Like, he's a nice player that does a lot of good things, but he doesn't, to me, seem like anything close to, like, what a rookie of the year looks like. The board is pretty interesting. Wells is 3rd now, and not just because I bet him on every single sports book. Missi is 4th. Castle's at 5th. There's a 1,200 to him. I bet him at 10-1 and was like, I'm going to get such great CLV. Nope. Just Stephon Castle can't put together like 5 good games of stats. Really need a Chris Paul takes a week off for my Stephon Castle bet tickets. Reese Shay's back down to 35-1. I'll talk more about him in a second. Joe, let's talk about kind of like this board, where we're at, rookie of the year, the rookie wall that we're looking at as well. You were the one that tipped as soon as McCain got hurt. You tipped the Action Channel about Edey. I paired him with everything. I have so many Zach Edey and tickets. Yeah. They're falling out of my drawer. And it was a great bet because, CLV sandwich all day. But much like Wells, the Grizzlies' best combos are Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark.
Yeah.
I think Edey probably still continues to play. But I am kind of curious, as you look at the board and the odds, where's the value on Rookie of the Year right now?
So I think that you're right in terms of what the situation with Sarr is, where he's going to get a lot more run as the season goes on. I also think that when you look really like further down, the only other guy is like Bub Carrington, maybe, and his number is way longer at 75-1. So he's somebody that I think makes more sense right now if you were going to buy somebody, because you could say there's going to be like a significant uptick in terms of his raw like output numbers. Additionally, like I was doing some research while you were talking a little bit about what like the rookie points per game leader is like every single season. We have not had anybody this low in like literally over 20 years. The last time there was somebody this low, the lowest that I can go back to that within reason, the 2000-2001 season, Mark Jackson, Golden State Warriors, 13.2 points per game.
Wow.
That's how far back we have to go to get somebody that's this low. So I think that like when people are like looking at it and saying, well, Sarr is leading in points per game, honestly, like I don't think we should give a shit. Like it's so low. Like this is so low. This is the floor. So like it's not like somebody's going out there and they're scoring like even like 16, 17 points a game where you could say, okay, like this is a meaningful amount of points. Like 11 points is like nothing right now. Like that
in a modern era with more points too.
Exactly, especially in the modern era. So I do think there's going to be a little bit more nuance to it than just saying like, oh, well, he's leading in points when it's 11, So I do think that there's some reason for uptick there, but I also just am not 100% sold on it. And his efficiency has just been atrocious. So maybe that improves as the season goes on. But I mean, he's only shooting like 30% from 3, 40% from the floor. Whereas if you look at Bub Carrington, he's at 9.1 points, 4 rebounds, 4 dimes, like 40% from the field, 35-ish% from 3. The biggest thing though is if the guys that leave or the guys that might get traded from Washington, Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, that to me is a much more of an open path for Carrington than it is for Sarr. So Sarr's, I think, already getting like enough minutes. He's chucking the ball whenever he wants, like somewhere near the basket. And he's getting some of the blocks, some of the defensive stats. But I do think given the number that we're looking at, 75-1 isn't crazy. I also just don't, at the same time, I don't know like how much buzz Bub Carrington is going to get for the Rookie of the Year. And I think it does create that problem where it's like people want to revert to their priors, and you're going to say, all right, well, like Sarr was somebody that was looked at for the number 1 pick. Edey was the preseason favorite. Missi like is in the same grouping where you're saying, well, like he wasn't super hyped coming into the season. He was what, the 20th pick of the draft or 19th. So I do have some concerns there. And then, like you said, like unless Chris Paul's going to miss time, I don't think that Stephon Castle's going to get enough burn. So if I had to bet anybody right now, Carrington, I think, makes the most sense at 75-1. At the same time, I think that number is probably going to be there, like right when they make a trade. Like unless people are immediately going, when you get that notification that there's a trade for Jordan Poole or Kyle Kuzma, if your first thing to do is go bet the Rookie of the Year market and bet Bub Carrington, you are one of us. But I think that would be your opportunity to go do it, as opposed to, just putting out money right now.
So I want to fact check you. You said 2000 or 99 2000 or
2000 2001, like that season.
Okay, that was Mike Miller.
Mike Miller. Okay, so this was wrong. Whatever this website was wrong.
Because you said Mark Jackson, and I was like, wait, Mark Jackson was like a rookie in the 80s.
Yeah.
And so Jackson went way back. And I'm not one to typically defend the honor of Mark Jackson, but you are right in terms of Mike Miller, who averaged 11.9 points per game.
Okay, there it is.
And that's the fewest. Since you're right on the date, but it was Mike Miller. That's who we're talking about here. Is the infamous 01 draft with Mike Miller. Your thoughts on the trade are similar to me, where I don't know. I've heard the Hawks are no longer like itching to talk about Ricochet or about DeAndre Hunter and Bogey and Okongwu. Like, they were pretty open to talks for that first 6 weeks, and they have. I have, at least for now, I've heard that's been a lot like quieter. And so if Hunter doesn't get moved, but if for some reason they do trade DeAndre Hunter, then I will be going for Zachary Ricochet immediately. Yeah. Like, that's the move, is like try and get ahead of that market move. Jim, in this market that you love so much, what is your thought on? By the way, real quick, shout out Jamison Battle, the only rookie this season with a positive offensive BPM for the Toronto Raptors. Shout out Jamison Battle for doing that. Anyway, go ahead.
Rookie of the year.
Your thoughts, Jim?
Yeah, lock it in. I don't have a ton of thoughts. I think Sar is like very correctly the favorite right now, and for a few reasons here. I think basically I'm in lockstep with you guys of like the way you have to think about this is the players on the shitty teams are going to continue to get more and more and more usage as it goes. And I think Bub is an interesting name, but I think here's the really quick case against Bub. He's averaging 9 points a game right now. We're basically halfway through the year. Sar, if they trade those players, he'll also get a usage bump. He's averaging about 13 to 14 points a game over the last month. If he stretches out for the season as a whole, he'll end up around, and so say they trade people out, he averages 15, 16, nothing amazing, but ends around 13 and a half points, maybe 14, something like that. For Sar to clear his direct teammate, who he doesn't rebound as much, doesn't get as many blocks, anything like that, he's going to have to average like 20 plus points a game for the rest of the season after those trades, which haven't even happened yet. So we're basically at the halfway mark. It just is a lot of ground for him to make up. So I agree that that's probably the best number of a long shot that's out there, because I do think you want to be looking towards teams who are going to open up usage. I agree. If Hunter gets traded, I think Ricochet is such a value that it almost is worth a sprinkle now, just on the off chance he does get traded. But I really think that this is kind of sitting there for Sar right now. Edey and Wells both have been awesome, I've got a good bet on Wells. Joe's got a good bet on Edey. I'd love for those to come around, but I really do think that the further the season goes along, Memphis has been about as unhealthy as they possibly can be. This kind of seems like the ceiling for them. Wells, it looks like in recent games, has kind of hit that rookie wall a little bit. He hasn't been playing quite as well. So I think that Sar is the name that you want to be on. Unfortunately, he's the favorite right now. So again, I wouldn't bet it right now. I think maybe Ricochet, in the hopes of a trade, is the only one I would do. And honestly, even that would be a sprinkle. So unfortunately, I think whoever came in and moved Sar, that was a good bet, and that he is a correct favorite right now.
I do like the Bub Carrington talk, though. That's a smart one. If they move Poole,
you think he can catch up? Because it also hurts that the favorite right now is also going to get all that extra usage.
I don't know if it matters. I don't think he has to pass. I don't know if he has to pass him, but I think it.
But Sar would have more rebounds and blocks. Like, what would the case for Carrington be?
I think it would have to be like, let's say the trade happens. Well, I guess within the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? Yeah.
So basically at the halfway point, because they're at 36 games right now, 37.
I mean, if he sees a bump, in theory, like let's say he jumps to like 13, 14 points a game, 6 boards, 6 assists, then you're like, oh, these are like, and running an offense, that I think it speaks more, but it's so hard for rookie guards to be good. Like it's so hard, but at the same time, he has the ball in his hands. So, he's going to be able to get some additional opportunities that maybe Sarr's getting now because of the way the ball's being distributed. Like maybe that doesn't happen the same way. I don't know, but I think that might be the case.
Are you saying that his end of season stats would be 14, 6, and 6?
No, I'm saying that like once the trade happens, you looked at it and you said, okay, well, since like the All-Star break when he was given the reins, he's been so much better than his teammate Alex Sarr. Like that's the way it would have to go. That you'd have to,
because if he averaged 14, 6, and 6, that brings him to like 11 and a half, 5 and 5, whereas Sarr is going to be at like 14, 9 and 2 or something.
The thing is that these are so low. You just need Carrington to have a few pop out games.
I think I push back against that because being halfway through the season, like if you just math it, in order to pass him in points, he's going to have to average 20 a game. And I just don't see how you could have two teammates, one of who is filling the rest of the stat sheet more, and was the higher pick, so comes with more pedigree, and that usually matters in these things. I agree that it's the best long shot. I just find it hard to get him over Sarr.
Yeah, we'll react to these things as the trade market develops, but I'll also say like I'm not entirely sold that Memphis is going to look the same way after the deadline either, and Wells could actually be a part of that equation. So,
well, here's the other thing. I will say this in favor of Bub. It could be that Carrington's the second best option, and Sarr could roll an ankle and then bubble trade. That's the other way.
Injury's always there. All right, Jim's favorite award. In preseason, he brought me Nikola Jokic, and I was like, "Are you out of your mind?" And then by the end of the episode, I was like, "God damn it, I'm gonna bet on this," and we bet on it. And now Nikola Jokic is a -110 favorite. He's odds on. So
don't
nice
be
job,
jinxing this
Turvey.
like Peyton Pritchard over here, though. There's a lot of season left.
No, but here's the thing: even if it doesn't. Right? Because, like, I think, like, Jokic is, like, a legitimate one versus, like, Pritchard's just, like, some sort of comic book and fabrication. Like, this is, like, a legitimate move. Like, this is a genuinely amazing bet. Joe, all of your bets are amazing. I just really do not like this Peyton Pritchard for 6-man idea. It seems so contrived. So, I pulled a bunch of stats for us. Jokic is leading in total points. Fox is 4 behind him. Edwards is 5 behind Jokic. Trae Young, who I bet on this weekend, it's in the Action Network app, is 12 points behind after he hit that insane game winner versus Utah. That's the most memorable game winner I think we've had this season.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Based off of the amount of attention that it got. I looked at per game, minimum 15 clutch games. Jokic leaves at 4.6. Young is second at 3.7. Tatum is third at 3.6. Giannis at 3.4, and on and on. I looked at who has a, this is what I think is really interesting. They won't look at this because they'll just take clutch and be like, oh, this is the clutch. But you can change the parameters on the clutch page. And if you change it to the last 2 minutes in a 1-possession game, because to me, that's like the clutchest of the clutch.
That's actually clutch,
how do you score when it's a 3-point game inside 2 minutes? Tyrese Maxey is number 1 by 8 full points. He's got 40 points in the last 2 minutes of a game within 3 points. And that's incredible. Edwards, though, is second at 32. I looked at most clutch games. The Wolves have had the most clutch games, followed by the Warriors, the Pistons, the Kings, the Hawks, the Hornets. So the Wolves are on pace to have the most clutch games this season, which I think is very interesting. Most clutch wins is the Cleveland Cavaliers, followed by the Pistons, the Hawks, the Rockets, and the Wolves. So, Jim, I have Trae right now, but as this podcast concludes, I will be betting Anthony Edwards at 14-1 to win Clutch Player of the Year to add to our portfolio.
So Ant worries me a little bit because he is by far, so he has a lot of field goal attempts. He also, there was literally 30 minutes before we started recording, I opened up Twitter and there's a viral video going around of Ant missing shots in the clutch. And he has missed a lot of potential game winners, late shots. And they're ugly too. They're forced. They don't look good. But again, it's a control sort thing, and he is near the top. But I struggle with him the most because I do think there's a narrative among that fan base even of like, this guy is actually forcing things in the clutch and it's actually not great. Now, I don't know if that will seep into the greater narrative of the voters. Maybe it's fit. Maybe they won't. They'll just say he has got a lot of clutch points. I'm ignoring the fact that he shot, 30% in the clutch, and we're just going to go with it. This year's really interesting. This will be the pivot year for the award because there's a decent chance that De'Aaron Fox is once again, at the top of that leaderboard. He gets so much uses in the clutch. They always have close games. They're starting to win those close games too. He's building a really nice portfolio. So is this the year where we learn, is this like comeback player of the year, most improved player of the year, where you can really, you kind of only win it once, or it's spread out by, 6, 7, 8 years, something like that? Or is it like sixth man of the year where you can win, 2 out of 3 or even back to back sometimes? I still lean towards thinking it's going to be more like a most improved or a comeback where you win once, most likely once in your career. And it can kind of be used as an award to like honor someone here and there. And I think that case, to me, the name that I'm intrigued by is Darius Garland. Yeah, the Dunker Spot shouted him out as their pick for clutch player of the year this year. And I know that, I personally am like, oh, if they say it's true, I know that they don't have as much sway as I sometimes give them. But he has the best plus minus in these performances. I think at some point, some of the voters have to bring some nuance to this award beyond just control sort the most points. And he has, you mentioned the Cavs record in close games. Yeah, you might be right. It might not be for a while, but he's 8th in terms of these clutch points. So it's not like he is far down the list, and it's right there that it's very obvious. He has some pretty notable late buckets in both of their wins this week. He had big late buckets. The game that Mitchell sat out, he was the high usage guy in the clutch. So I'm pretty intrigued by Garland. It would be a great way to reward the Cavs. They're not going to win. They're not going to have an MVP. They're not going to have, I don't think they'll have most improved player. I hope Mobley gets defensive player of the year, but it looks like we're for some reason doing the Wemby thing because he's a star. It would be a great way to give an award to a Cavs team that otherwise is going to be missing them. So Garland is the most intriguing name out there. Trey definitely has, I think that you're right in that he is an accurate second favorite right now, but he doesn't have the field goal attempts. He actually is like doing it relatively efficiently, but he isn't getting all that many field goal attempts, in part because the Hawks are that weird team that when they lose by like 50. And like it's why the numbers keep hating them for their regular season win total. They're not in all that many close games. So he's interesting, and I think narratively he's got the the ice tray. Like he comes across as a clutch player, which I think helps. But at this point, if you out there have that Jokic bet, I think Garland is the one who, as we check in on January 12th, is the one hedge that I would want.
Games within 2 points in the final 30 seconds. Your league leaders in field goals made are Anthony Edwards, DeAndre Hunter, and Tyrese Maxey.
Maxey is an interesting one too. I have to say that when you boiled it down to the 2-minute thing, and they're going to be in a lot more close games. The worry is that they're slowly getting healthier, but it seems like he gets the usage over Paul George even. So I think he might keep getting those late opportunities.
Yeah,
I'll wait on Ant because of the viral video. Joe, go ahead.
I would say I like Maxey. I mean, if you look at this, he's only played in 12 clutch games, I think partially because of the injury, partially because the rest of the team has just been a disaster for the most part of the season, right? But he's 5th in scoring, and he's not even like close to the top of the minutes leaderboard there. Like he's getting those looks, and at the end of the day, if you're down, you need threes for the most part, and Maxey's going to get those looks, not Joel Embiid, not Paul, like maybe Paul George, right? But at the same time, Maxey's usually the one that's given the opportunity, given his range, everything else, right? And I do think that Philadelphia because they are Philadelphia and they have all these stars, they have Joel Embiid, they got Paul George, they're having a lot of nationally televised games still. So he's going to have a lot of opportunity, I think, as the season goes on, when they're trying to chase for like a playoff spot, where he's going to have all eyes on him and be able to kind of rack up some of these numbers. So I think at 25-1, I would want Maxey for a guy that people have voted for an award before. They like, the name is popular. He's a big name. He's probably somebody that maybe not this year is in like all-star conversation, but I think he will be an all-star in some conversations. So I do think that Maxey to me is somebody that can handle the volume, and even when the other guys are on the floor, you are looking for him in those clutch situations, given what he can do and the types of shots that he can take, as opposed to like Embiid, where, you know, like, yeah, sure, he can take a three, but that's not really the shot you want him to take anyway.
56% from the field in the last minute of a game. 2-point game or less for Tyrese Maxey. He's pretty good. Pretty good. All right. Let's get some best bets for Monday. You can check these in the Action Network app. We'll go around the horn and list them out. Joe Dellera, before you take a drink of water, I will let you go first.
I like Karl Anthony Towns over 24.5 points against the Detroit Pistons and the Grizzlies plus 2.5.
Jim Turvey.
Got a same game parlay for y'all. I've got Detroit +7 and the Detroit fourth quarter money line. And then my other bet is a player prop, Ja Morant under his points, rebounds, and assists. Now, both these lines weren't out. We're going to semi-soft cap them, walk them through it. But while you're saying yours, I'm going to see if I can find the exact number.
Okay. I am taking the Los Angeles Lakers and San Antonio Spurs under 223.5. I am taking the Los Angeles Lakers at home -2.5. And I am also going to take Rockets Grizzlies under 235.5. Tight slate for me tonight with just some totals. There's a bunch of games I wanted to be on, including the Memphis Grizzlies here, Joe. I wanted that. Like, I was like, ooh, bounce back spot, revenge spot, duplex spot, all of these things after the Grizzlies took the loss of the Rockets last week. However, I can't get there on the number. Both these teams, by the way, are exceptional in their spots. The Grizzlies are 58% against the spread on the road. The Rockets are 58% against the spread at home. The Rockets are 2.5-point favorites. I make this 1.7. So like I have about a 3/4 of a point lean towards Memphis. That's not enough to get me interested. I do think it's going to be a very close game. I am going to be probably tempted to take final margin inside 5 points with an overtime escalator. But Memphis, one of the things that's tough is this season has been very, and this is common in the NBA, but even more so it feels like this season, teams have these stretches where they play great. And then they just play very for like a very, not long, but a pretty solid stretch of time. Memphis had like a spot there where I was like, I think this team can win the title. And now I'm like, I hope this team can make the playoffs. Like, it's not bad. It's just Memphis is, and a lot of it's just like they've had guys in and out and in and out. So they're just trying to figure out how to play together. But with Houston's defense being so ferocious, now we'll just say this, Houston's that team that is just like, we're going to come at you like dogs on every single play. Memphis has a little bit more tactical this season in terms of preparing for a playoff run. Like, they have very high expectations. Houston is just like, this is so much fun. Let's win every game. And that makes me not love them on the road here. I really badly want to be on Memphis. Try and talk me into it.
Yeah, I mean, the concern with Memphis is like they ran an 11-man rotation in a close game. That's a lot of dudes to play in one game. But I do think that when I looked at this game and I was kind of capping this anyway, I do think that these teams are closely situated. Houston was a 3-point dog, won outright last game. Now, we basically have the swing almost the exact other way for Memphis' 2.5-point underdog on the road. I like the idea of grabbing the points with them when on the season, I think that Memphis has been a better team slightly in terms of adjusted net rating. They have a better offense in terms of adjusted offensive rating, and the defense is pretty close for both teams. The biggest thing to me has been Memphis seems to finally be healthy. I think it does take some games to start to gel, start to find a little bit of a rhythm, see which rotations and which players do and don't work together. And given the fact that they just played each other, I think you do have a little bit of a recipe to say like, all right, like, let's not maybe run this rotation exactly like that. That didn't work well and because we just saw it. So I do think that Memphis's ability to adjust a little bit. We know that Jenkins is a good coach. We know that he makes some of those tweaks throughout the regular season. Given the fact that we just saw it, They just ran an 11-man rotation. I do think there's going to be some slight things that they can do a little bit differently. And also, Jalen Green had an incredible game when these two teams played. He had 27 points. Fred VanVleet also had a really good game, 22 points. He was scoring 170 points per 100 shot attempts because he was super efficient, right? So I do have some concerns about how much they can repeat that. And even Şengün had an incredible game, 32 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists. So I think that the Rockets, everything kind of went the way that they would have wanted it to in that game. And even from a shooting perspective, they didn't take a lot of threes, but they still shot almost 40% from three. And Houston, throughout the course of the season, this is a little bit of a higher number, I think, for them. So to me, I think there's a little bit more room for regression from Houston. I like the spot with Memphis, given the fact that they, even though Houston, they've had a lot of time off in between games because they had that game that got postponed in Atlanta. To me, I don't think they've been resting. That had to be like a situation from hell because it got canceled for weather. So I don't know where the plane landed. They were traveling. They were tacking in the airport. Who knows what was going on. It was not the same as just having a traditional, say, 4-game or 4-day rest advantage as opposed to the Memphis Grizzlies who had to play a game in between these two.
Okay, so I think one on the rotation front, that's where Memphis has kind of been doing. Is I've actually liked them a lot because of their optionality. Is that they've been running all these different lineups and rotations and hitting you with hey, you got to defend this one and then this one and then this one. So while I think later in the season Jenkins will make that rotate, I think he's testing out who can play, who cannot, who can play together, who cannot right now.
Yep.
On the Jalen Green point, he's been good since Thanksgiving, and I only know that because every Houston Rockets account tweets it because they're desperately trying to buy themselves into the idea of Jalen being a superstar, and then they tag me in it because I've always been like, Jalen's not a superstar. So he's been good since Thanksgiving. The numbers have been there, so I don't necessarily think that's an outlier. I think it being just a pure revenge, bounce back. Memphis does take this stuff personally, they do, and that game was personal. But this one's also that was Dylan. Dylan from the jump ball was it means a lot to him, and I don't blame him. He got completely scapegoated by that team, and it was kind of bullshit. So I don't blame Dylan at all for that. But Memphis is probably going to respond. But now this is in Houston, so I don't know. It's a messy spot. I really want to be on it. I just can't get there. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, coming into the night, I was thinking about leaning towards Houston, but we talked about this before the pod. It was because I got a piece of information from another podcast that I then double checked and proved inaccurate about Memphis against bad defenses. They're actually very good against bad defenses. I think if I were to approach this game, this really feels like a really tight game to me. I think either team within to win by less than 7, something that you mentioned going to overtime. I know you've been loving those. I think that's the route I would go down. One thing that has stood out to me, and I can kind of I'll mention it more in the jock cap as well, but when these two teams have played, it's been really fast paced, which is kind of surprising to me. I feel like Houston, they can certainly get on and run, but I feel like they like to grind folks down. But it's been Memphis who's been able to kind of implement their pace on these games. It's probably an overall good sign for Memphis. Joe talked about the shooting variance maybe going a little bit towards Houston, but I think that I think that if I'm betting this game, I want it to be on a close game. So if you want to be on the Memphis side, maybe grabbing the points isn't a bad idea because I do think it's going to be a really close game. Or if you want to grab either team to win by 7, I think that's probably how I'd approach it.
The under on this game. I think these two defenses are better than they showed in that previous matchup. In general, I kind of I know how fast Memphis plays, so that's always dangerous. Memphis this season is 74% to the over when they're on the road. So that's terrifying. But at the same time, I do think that there's because both these teams, and it's just 235.5 is a lot. That's a high number here. By the way, dunks and threes makes this game total 228 and a 2-point win for the Rockets. So right on the number is what we're looking at, but it does project a little bit of a lower pace game, or a lower scoring game. So I'm with the under on this game. I'll take that here as well. Jim, give me the Ja Morant cap.
Yeah, I mean, I am hoping that you are correct that this is a lower score game that is a slower pace game, and that we get kind of a repeat of how Ja's been against the Rockets. I did this as a points, rebound, and assist because I think that's a little bit more mainstream. More people are going to be betting the PRA, but the my favorite part of it is the rebounds and assists. So Houston allows the fewest points, so I don't mind tacking that on. And Ja hasn't really gone bananas against them in general. It's a really good defense, but in his 2 games this season against the Rockets, it's really been the rebounds and assists that have just been completely MIA. He has 3 rebounds and 5 assists combined in these 2 games. And this number should be around 10.5 against just a really, really tough defense that gives up the fewest assists. They give up the 10th fewest rebounds. And Ja is a player who all year has kind of been skewing towards the under, in part because his minutes never have really ramped up. I think that's very purposeful. It took the books a little bit to realize that those minutes weren't fully getting there. So if you've been hitting his unders all season, that's kind of been the way to go on this. And his assist rate too, so Joe mentioned that, we've got Triple J, we got Bane and Ja. This hasn't happened all that often for Memphis this year. When the 3 of them are on the court, somewhat surprisingly, Ja's assist rate is notably lower than it is kind of for his career as a whole. I think he likes to create more when he has the ball more. Bane is also a pretty good passer. They can facilitate through him as well. It drops from about 40% to around 32%. So I'm looking at the rebounds and assists under for Ja, but I also like the points part of it if you prefer the PRA. Sometimes if you're limited, you can get more down on the PRA than the rebounds and assists specifically. But I'll be looking to fade Ja on Monday.
Okay. Joe, give me the cap on Karl Anthony Towns going ham on my Detroit Pistons.
I know they have MVP frontrunner Tobias Harris over there, but look, so we got I like the spot for KAT. It's a back-to-back after he just put up 30 against Milwaukee. He's averaging 25.4 points per game on the season. The biggest thing to me, though, is when these 2 teams played previously this season, he scored 21 points, basically didn't play in the fourth quarter, didn't need to, it was a blowout. Jim is going to talk about why he likes the Pistons to kind of keep this close. And I think that actually kind of helps the cap here because we aren't going to run into a blowout situation. The other thing is Jalen Brunson got like a stinger of some sort to his shoulder in the middle of the game today against Milwaukee. He left. It was conveniently right around the same time that the Eagles were kicking off. So I'm wondering if that was why he went to the locker room. But he did come back into the game, dropped over 40 points. So obviously had a good game. But you never know how that kind of flares up in the day after. And maybe this would be a spot where they say, you know what, let's give Brunson a day off. In the event that Brunson gets a day off, KAT is going to see a massive jump, I think, in both his usage and in his scoring opportunities. I also just think this is a pretty tough matchup for Detroit. I know that they've been limiting. Sometimes Duren's minutes get cut instead of with Isaiah Stewart filling in a little bit more. But either way, the way that Karl Anthony Towns can score and from the fact that he can score from beyond the arc or, obviously at the basket, I do think this is a good opportunity for him at 24.5 points, whether Brunson's in or whether Brunson's out. I like it against the Detroit Pistons here on Monday night.
My numbers are like screaming to take the Knicks. I won't do it because they've actually been kind of underwhelming this season on the second night of back-to-backs. I don't know about the Jalen Brunson number. I don't know where this number goes. The Knicks really are like they're a top-level team. We talk about this like the floor, right? Detroit's like I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm really excited because we're gonna hopefully cash all these. I have my biggest position preseason was on their opener win total of 22.5. I hammered it. And I bet again at 25.5. But like for comparison, the Pistons are 20-19. The Kings are 20-19. The Kings have a plus 2.1 schedule adjusted net rating. The Pistons have a minus 2.1 schedule adjusted net rating. Like it's very wonky here in terms of trying to be like they're like a plus team. So I still have them rated as a below, like they should be dogs to most teams on neutral court. I don't really want to mess with this because the Pistons do have momentum on their side. The Knicks are coming off of this great win versus the Bucks. It's a letdown spot, all that and more. Jim, I'm assuming that's part of your cap. Tell me why you like Detroit +7 and Detroit with a fourth quarter money line.
You guys talked through some of it for sure. letdown spot for sure. The Brunson, semi-questionable nature of if he's going to go on a back-to-back here. But really the biggest thing to me is, so you kind of talked about how Detroit has the momentum, is what you said, because they have been playing better lately. And I think that, I jokingly said earlier, we love arbitrary, dates. And I do think it's a little bit arbitrary, but the Pistons, if you look at the last month, are a plus. They are a adjusted net rating plus positive team. And sometimes you'd be like, well, you're picking out a spot. And like before that, they were negative. Why are you weighing one more than the other? I do tend to weigh things more when it is a team that's kind of centered around a young player who is clearly improving in front of our eyes. That to me is more signal than noise. And KAT has been absolutely outstanding. With Ivy out, his usage has gone up. He's actually looking to score a little bit more. You think maybe he gets even more, creative and his playmaking goes up. He's just scoring now, and he's scoring really well. And the biggest thing here is that I see there's a couple game scripts that land this same game parlay. There's actually multiple routes to what should be around a plus 200, maybe plus 250 number out there. One is that this is just a close game. Dunks and threes makes this a 5-point game. That's well within the 7 and I think there was even a 7.5 for a minute out there, but the 7, that's lesser than that. The other is that the Knicks go ahead, and then the Pistons have the third best fourth quarter net rating this season. They're 24, 13, and 2 against the spread in the fourth quarter against a Knicks team, again, on a back-to-back, who is actually one of the worst teams in the league in the fourth quarter. They're 17 and 22. If we go just by net rating in the fourth quarter, Knicks have a negative 2.9 net rating in the fourth quarter. The Pistons are plus 4.4. Again, it kind of makes sense. The Knicks are a veteran team that often has a lead in the fourth quarter. The Pistons are a young, spunky team that is often making comebacks in the fourth quarter. So if we can get there, either if the Pistons keep it close, we can get there, or it works just as well if it's a little bit of a blowout. In fact, if we head into the fourth quarter, Pistons down, around 10 points, it actually works out really well for this game script of two things that are really highly correlated. I think that the Pistons covering the plus 7 without winning the fourth quarter doesn't seem all that likely to me. So if I can combine the two, and unless, like I said, I don't have the exact number, there wasn't a book that was offering it just yet, unless the books like incredibly sniff this out and it's like plus 125 because they are over baking in the correlation. If we can get, a plus 175 or something, I think these two are so highly correlated. That's two numbers I like. Smash them together and actually, get a decent plus number on it. So that's going to be a same game parlay I'm placing for Monday.
A couple numbers for you with this. The Pistons as road dogs this season are 7 and 8 straight up, 9, 5 and 1, 64% against the spread. Against teams with a winning percentage of 60% or better, however, they fall to 1 and 4 and 2 and 3 against the spread on the road. The other one is, I looked at this. How do Tibbs teams do when their opponent, when they lost the previous matchup in season? And they lost actually to Detroit earlier this year. The Knicks over the last two seasons, so in this kind of Brunson era, 7 and 3 straight up, 6 and 4 against the spread in those games. 2 and 8, by the way, to the over. So 8 and 2 to the under in those spots. This is I am trying very hard to provide bets while not stepping on landmines as we approach the midway point of the season, because this is where it gets really hard. The best time to bet the NBA is early when all the lines are off, and then like that late switch when they're adjusting, but you can find like some variance and flexibility. We're heading into the dog days where it's like everybody's out and everybody's injured and everybody's banged up, and the market's getting sharper by the second. So I'm trying very hard not to step on landmines. And Grizzlies and Pistons are two bets I badly want to make that I'm going to resist. And instead,
scale down time for sure. If you've got those high, just cut them in half. Start shaving off a little bit off those units right now.
Yeah. I am, however, going to take Lakers over Spurs in the under. So I've got this projected 216 versus a 223.5 line. If you look at San Antonio on the road, overs are 47%. Lakers home games, 47% on over. So there's a little bit over 50% for each of them. A little bit over profitability line for unders and for both the away team and the home team. My number's done well on the total this year on those games. Likewise, I make this game 6 with the Lakers. It feels gross to like handicap the horribleness of the fires, and I hope everybody's safe. And I've been retweeting things like support resource hotlines and where to go to find support, or if you want to donate stuff. That's all very important. This is a betting podcast, and like, look, athletes are human and they're impacted by these types of things, and I think that they're going to get up for this game. So I think the Lakers are going to win, and they're going to play great defense, and I think the Spurs are going to struggle to score versus Anthony Davis's size. So I'll take the under, and I'll take the Lakers in this game as well. All right, that's going to do it for buckets. Hope you guys have had a good show. Do we hit everything? Do we have any lingering bets? Okay, cool. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be me and Jay Money getting you set for the Tuesday slate. Have yourselves a good day. Thanks to David Payne, our producer. Thanks to Tommy John. Thanks to Gifford Gould and Brady Rubino. We'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, skip buckets.